Oak Island 90-foot stone. 10 feet below are 2 million pounds buried. 2 million pounds sterling or 2 million pounds of dirt? Anyway, next. The Oak Island stone that was supposed to be found at 90 feet underground. Round and round. Well, it was 80 feet. Let's just keep score. You know, Cinema Sin style. Ding! It's about a foot thick, and it's a 2-foot square of stone. And it was supposed to have several characters cut into it. And it could be anything from a deep gouges, like somebody chiseled it in for all time, you know, set in stone or carved in stone. Or it could be literally just scratched on the surface. Wonder which one it was. I want you to think about the logic of putting a stone directly above your ill-gotten booty or ill-botten goody that you're trying to prevent someone from getting at, when only person who should be looking at that message would be maybe you. Most buried treasure was buried very temporarily just so that you didn't have it on you or didn't have it aboard your ship, so that there would be no evidence of an action, and so that nobody could steal it from you, because thieves steal from thieves. That's actually how this happens, by the way. This is something that's actually understood about history. So let's just ignore that and move on. Anyway, July 2nd, 1862, a story in the Halifax Sun and Advisor was posted. And it was based on a June 2nd, 1 month earlier, 1862, letter from one J.B. McCulley, which was a second-hand retelling, and then now third or fourth hand, of a 1805. That's a long time before, over 50 years. Description of an excavation on this on Oak Island, describing a bunch of things. Now that's the earliest in print version, right? Okay. In 1872, almost exactly 10 years later, The Treasures of the Sea, a James DeMille fiction, a novel, detailed how he was a summer resident of Chester Basin during the later 1860s, not the earlier. So he said he was there after the story was published, and he'd lived on Oak Island, again after the story had been published, for a summer, and possessed first-hand knowledge of the underground workings through his own observations. This is the claim. Next, 1893, treasure seekers set up a prospectus to get investors. Perpetual motion machine, anybody? And claimed that at some unknown point between 1864, which was again after the story had been published in a newspaper, and 1893, that year, a stone was taken, the stone that had been gotten out of there, that had been in a chimney, because that's exactly where you would put a treasure map secret. And somehow you got it from there, but again it said 10 feet below that is where the treasure is. Nobody bothered digging any further when they found a message. But anyway, here we go. And it wasn't 90 feet across, it was 90 feet down. It was actually 80 feet down. But 90 feet down is when you find it underground, is where the treasure is. 10 more feet, couldn't dig it up. Okay, anyway. But anyway, this was supposed to have been in a chimney. Well, it was moved to Halifax, where an unnamed expert was said to have deciphered the stone as reading 10 feet below or 2 million pounds buried. Where had it been moved? A August 19th, 1911 Collier's Magazine. Now remember, there's a novelization already. There's a novelization of someone said, I was there, but it's a novel. All this stuff happened after it had been in the paper. And this is how far back? 16, 17 what? Collier's Magazine posted a first-hand account in 1911 of something that was supposed to have happened in 1862. Captain H.L. Bowden said the stone was now this is the fun part. I mean, anyway, where it went in Halifax was a bookbindery for some reason, and he described it as having no symbols on it. It was of basalt type, hard and fine-grained, but it was just a stone. It's a 1 foot by 2 foot stone, a cuboid chunk of rock. The kind of thing you would have for making a building out of. Just a really heavy stone. You would use it, you would grunt and push it into place. Anyway, he was told the marks had worn off by then, 1911, due to how the stone had been used at the bookbindery. The symbols used for a replica stone located at the Oak Island Museum come from a letter sent from Mr. Kempton in 1949. So we're over almost 200 years later. No, over almost 100 years later. Excuse me, I got the numbers wrong. 100 years later. And Kemper said he got the symbols from an old school teacher in the town of Mahone Bay around 1919. No name given. Have you looked at the symbols? Okay, I'm going to bring them up on my screen because I'm going to explain something as everything goes completely dark here. Let's see if I can get this on the screen. There we go. Now, let's get back to that. Okay, there we are. Now, I'm going to describe the symbols that were used, and you can make up your own code at home. Now, let's see how quickly you can do this. Now, remember, there was a description of the symbols, and it was indecipherable. Okay? All right. A is I'm going to call it a period. B is translated as a cross or a T. No symbol for C. D is a rectangle that's up and down rather than left to right. It's taller than it is wide. E is a colon. These are symbols that were available at the time that a person could have verbally explained to someone. F is a triangle, but it's upside down, so it's pointing down. You could say down arrow. G and H are not given a symbol of any kind. The letter I is a right side up triangle, but they're dots instead of a full triangle. J and K are blank. The letter L is a square with the right hand side of the square missing, so it looks a lot like a big letter C. The letter M is a lot like the letter B is symbolized, only it's basically an H tilted on its left side. Some of you are getting this, aren't you? The letter N is simply the letter X. The letter 0 is a percent symbol. Not really, but it'll look like it. The letter P is a circle with a line going this way, which would look like the equator line. Q is missing. The letter R is the same symbol, but it's tilted to where it looks like an actual number 0 with a slash through it. The letter S is a circle with a dot in the middle. The letter T is an up arrow, or just a standard triangle. The letter U is transposed to a plus sign. V is missing. The letter W is a full square, just a square. The letter X isn't included, and the letter Y is an arrow pointing down and to the left. So you could say it was like a slash mark almost, and the letter Z is missing. And apparently the letter F was there, and it was crossed out, or it should be the letter F, and has lines going through it to cross out to indicate a mistake, because when you do stonework, because your stone is extremely hard to replace, obviously it's hard to replace. It's not like you could just get another stone and do the symbols all over again. So how many symbols were there? T-E-N and the F-E-E-T. Below are 2 million pounds buried Oak Island. Or buried, excuse me. Okay, here's the problem with this. This has been turned into a novelization which people are using. People had read by then and are re-speaking. And the only time the deciphered symbols were ever brought up, deciphered, was almost 100 years later, and it was supposed to have been a school teacher. That's the straightforward least problematic, hard to track down version of this. Okay, here we go. Why would someone make up a story like this? Because you get to pay a fee to do treasure hunting on the island. Whoever gets the fee, or whatever syndicate, they're called syndicates, gets the money is the one that benefits and profits. This is a very clear pathway to make money. You just sell. There's a place in the United States where you can go dig up diamonds. You know that, right? And there's another place you can go gold mining for it's for an activity. It's an entertainment activity. Sort of like going to Vegas and trying to win at gambling. It's just for entertainment purposes. Now, it's supposed to become obsessed with it and throw shite tons of money down the drain trying to win a hand of blackjack. Treasure hunters come in two varieties. Actual business people that don't get emotionally involved ever. I mean, tenacity is one thing, but you don't pursue something for over 100 years that has never had anything. And never produced anything. There's apocryphal. People assume the stories are true. They want it to be true. The Oak Island treasure hunting activity is a business, and people go there to dig up stuff. The earliest owners are listed at one point. The most likely scenario is that this was probably a well, because it had water, fresh water available, and then there was a drought and it got screwed up and it stopped being a viable well, so they filled in the hole and hoped that it would fix itself over time, because that's standard operating procedure for anybody who's actually done sailing and has been on any island that's had a salt intrusion, or in this case brine. It's not fully salt water, it's not seawater. Get into it. You plug the hole and let the water build back up from rainfall. Desert island? Yeah. So anyway, someone said, well, what about this? What about it? This has questionable authenticity about the symbols, the patterns, the interpretation, everything. And the thing is, no one has a copy of it. And the thing is, the original description was basically a building stone shaped, basically a half cube with something scratched onto the surface, which would have been a very good way to do that, because if it was disturbed over time, it would erase itself. Look, when people bury something, they're not going to bury it in such a way that it's trapped to keep them from getting into it. You never know when you're going to need to dig something up. I've actually had to make caches. I've got 5 of them near me. You bury something down just deep enough to get away with it. Where I'm camping right now, 3 feet over this way, I know for a fact is a cache that's built by digging at, this is a simple trick, find a tree, even though this one's broken in half already. You dig around whatever area where the roots form a gap, because that gap will be a deep spot in the ground that goes down into the undercarriage, or the underspace underneath a tree, and you might find the taproot if it has them. Most trees where I'm at, they spread out. You dig into it until you get down about 12 feet or 5 feet or whatever you want to do, and you deliberately fill it back in. It's already loosened up. You don't have to do anything with it. And you do that with a lot of different locations. That's how you do this. And then when you found one that's stable after you dig it up, so that it isn't going to cave in, so you know you can get away with it, then you put your stuff in there. Now, if you have to do it fast, you look for something that's already a depression in the ground, set it into the depression, because it'll reform it if it has to. If it's there, it'll probably happen again. And pour dirt in it. And you make it shallow, but you make it look like the rest of the environment. It's not that complicated. I used to do caching when I was a kid. I would bury my treasure and then go find it again. I'm missing a bunch of stuff in the yard that I used to live at. Look, this isn't how you do it. I'm just going to get to the point. And if anybody's living in Eastern Oregon and wants to know where the gigantic red marble came from, that's me. And it was a piece of a taillight that I carved into a giant marble to play marbles with. Look, if you were a kid and you didn't do buried treasure things and learn this, I'm sorry, but you're not qualified to do this stuff. Thanks for watching. Have a good day, and good luck with that. And I've been on digs digging up stuff for archaeology before, too. Just a little bit. I was an assistant at one point. But no, really, this is not how you'd bury treasure.